trade lines are the fastest way to fix your credit. Yes, fix your credit. And guess what? Only you can do this. So this is part 2 of the Tradelines masterclass, where we are covering the different types of trade lines and what you need to do in order to decorate your credit profile so you can get approved for funding and have long-term success. Now, in the last part, which was part 1 of this Tradelines masterclass, I covered a major play that you need to know. So go back and watch the entire video for part 1 because you need to catch up. Now, I'm going to be talking about creating your own trade lines. You can do this and then add your children to your trade lines. So basically, a trade line is just a credit account. So there's different types of trade lines. There's primary, there's authorized user, there's installment, and there's revolving, right? Installments, loans, revolving are the credit cards and the lines of credit. Now, for the revolving, those are where we can add authorized users for the credit cards, okay? We can add an authorized user to our credit card and then they would inherit this entire account history and credit limit onto their credit profile. And a lot of times when someone just turns 18, they might not necessarily have a credit score because they don't have any trade lines, aka credit accounts, to establish their credit score. So this is where we come in as parents. We can add our children to our credit cards as an authorized user. You can add other people on as well, but this way we can ensure that our children are set up for success and they don't have to pay for a trade line. Now, maybe you don't have a trade line and you want to pay. That's great. I have those, not a problem. Link is in the description. You can check out our list. But this is a way for you to create your own trade lines. That's the game of this. If you can't pass level 1, level 2, or level 3, how are you going to get to the next level? So a lot of times we have to retrain our brain in order to properly leverage credit. We have to understand we are simply decorating our personal credit profile so that way we can fund our businesses. And you can have multiple businesses that you fund. Every bank is different, but again, you're using your social security number to personally guarantee on behalf of the business. But if you build your personal credit profile correctly, you will get the funding that you need. I promise you. But you have to understand how to build. You have to have primary trade lines, aka credit accounts. You have to have a diversified credit profile showing lenders that you are not a risk. There is no issue with you paying installment loans. There is no issue with you paying revolving accounts on time. You cannot get a late payment. It's very important that you set up auto pay to ensure that you pay the minimum amount due every single month. I cannot stress that enough to you guys. If you don't remember anything else from this video, please take that away because one late payment can drop your credit score anywhere up to 100 points. And I see it happen. And unfortunately, I've seen it happen to a lot of people that have been in my program. And I get it. Things happen. And maybe we just didn't realize, or we didn't have the money, but we have to properly plan for these type of things because even one mess up, one late payment can damage your score for years and years and years and really set you back so many years. So what we need to do is just make sure that the minimum gets paid. And if you can't do that, call the bank and see if there's something that they can do. Sometimes they can defer loan payments to the end of the term. Sometimes they can provide some sort of assistance. Now, with a late payment, it's important for you to understand this. On the personal side, there is a 30-day grace period. So once you have gone past the due date, you're going to have to pay the credit card company what's called a late fee. And they're expensive. They're usually anywhere from like 35, sometimes like $50, but they are expensive. So you're going to have to pay the late fee plus the minimum amount due. And you have, 30 days to make that payment to them before they report that you are 30 days past due. So once you are 30 days past the due date, that's when they report you 30 days late to the credit bureaus. And that is very damaging. And just that one thing can cost you 100 points. So that's why it's really important right now, because student loans, they're back in business, and make sure you know what's going on with your student loans. Okay. If you have student loan debt, you need to contact the service provider of your student loans and set up what's called an income-based driven repayment plan, so you can pay them, a small payment every month to stay in good standing. And then when forgiveness is available, you can go after it. But you have to make sure that those are paid on time, because with student loans, they don't report late until you are 90 days late, sometimes 120. So it doesn't report a 30-day late. They really don't want to report a late. They want to try to get this corrected with you. They don't report 60 days late. They report 90 days late, which is super damaging. So make sure that you contact them and get that set up, and make sure you got auto pay set up, okay? So you can add your kids to your authorized or to your credit cards as authorized users. You can also sell slots as authorized users. I can't tell you how many people need this type of service because they can't get high approvals, they can't get the good credit score that they want. And by adding authorized user trade lines, you inherit the good history, you inherit the good credit limit. All right. And sometimes not every, authorized user account is going to be a good one to select from. And we'll go over that. Now, with my authorized user accounts, we have verified every account. We verified that it has 100% on-time payments. And we verified that the balance is less than 15% of the credit limit, which is really important. So if you have a family or a friend, say your credit is like mid-6s, right? You don't have any negatives. You don't have anything that's like bad. You just can't get your credit score up. Well, adding 1 to 2 authorized user accounts with a significant payment history, with no history of late payments. I don't care if the late payment was 7 years ago or 10 years ago. No good. All right. Perfect payment history and less than 15% of the credit limit. We're good to go. Get added as an authorized user. They'll receive a card in the mail. All they have to do is just activate it, and then they can cut it up, but you would inherit that on your credit report. If you don't have someone that would qualify to add you, pay for it. It's well worth it, guys. Believe me. I've paid for it. Unfortunately, when I bought my first trade line, the first one posted, and then I bought another one and it did not post. And I paid $1,000 for a trade line and it didn't post. And basically they blamed it on me, and I never got my money back or anything, right? And then after that, the girl just kind of disappeared. She's like, I'm going to give you a refund. So I said, you know what? There needs to be a better solution other than this. So I had to become that source and ensure that if any of my clients buy a trade line through me, that it is guaranteed to post. And if it doesn't post, we will replace it with the next best option. Unfortunately, we don't give refunds because we've already paid the cardholder. So we would have to find the next best replacement option for you. So in the event that something doesn't post, we'll just have to find the next best thing for you. And we try to get you something even better with like a longer history or a bigger credit limit. And, there's a lot of reasons why something might not post. Maybe you didn't make the cutoff date in time. Sometimes you will report the following month. So those are things that you also have to consider. Sometimes you have to do what's called an address merge, and we're going to get into that inside of this masterclass as well. Don't ever co-sign for anyone, guys. If you have good credit, you do not want to allow somebody else the opportunity to mess that up. You have worked so hard to get to where you are at, and to risk that even by co-signing for a spouse, a family member, a child who needs it so bad, so bad. Believe me, I've heard it all. I cannot tell you how many people have asked me to co-sign for loans or home improvements or solar or autos, and the answer for everyone is going to be the same. No. There are websites where you can find a cosigner. It's very expensive, but if you just Google cosigners for XYZ, whatever you're looking for, you can find cosigner websites for different things. Is it risky? I mean, it's expensive, so that's the thing. The people will do it, but it's expensive. So here's the thing. You don't want to co-sign. You want to help people understand how to qualify, or you want to get yourself qualified. So number one is you can clean up your credit and, create building credit, right? Create trade lines, get some credit cards, do some secured loans, and start building up your credit so you can add comparable credit to your profile so you can qualify. It's not that hard, right? I've helped people qualify for things in 3 months, 30 days, 6 months. It depends on how much they have and what all we have to do, right? So if you do have questions about your credit or you want to figure out what the best option for you would be, book a consultation with me. I still do one-on-one consultations right now, which, may change in the future. So book a consultation with me while they are still available. And you can also join the credit community, because inside the credit community, you will receive a discount on trade lines. And not only do we have personal trade lines, but we have business trade lines as well. The business trade lines report to Experian and SBFE, which is the Small Business Financial Exchange. Now, trade lines for personal and trade lines for business are very different, okay? So you have to understand that. But again, if you enjoy learning about personal credit, business credit, trade lines, funding, you want to join the credit community. You also want to make sure that you're subscribed to my channel, because I give out a ton of free value until you are ready to work with me by either joining the community program or joining one of my VIP programs where we work one-on-one together for up to a year in some cases. We have different programs, 6 months and 12 months, depending on where you're at. It might take longer, because it's also about retraining your brain and relearning everything that we once thought we knew. We kind of have to start over and refresh everything and say, okay, I have to figure out how this works for long-term success so I can do this one time, master it, become the best, and then I can help other people do the same thing, right? Not everyone wants to hear you, but in the event that someone doesn't qualify for something, all that you would have to do is just add them as an authorized user to your credit cards, and that's going to boost up their credit score. So for example, my family member that wanted me to co-sign or, do a loan for like home improvements, I said, no, I will not, but what I will do is I will add you as an authorized user to my credit cards, so that way it'll boost your credit score, because they only needed like 30 points to qualify for the solar, right? So I added them to about 4 of my credit cards, and it boosted their credit score like to 750. So that was way more than they actually needed to qualify. And then after all that, they decided that they actually didn't want the monthly payments. So, but it just goes to show that, you can help people qualify by other means that aren't as risky for you to take. Because if that person happens to make a late payment and you co-sign on a loan for them, that's a primary trade line for you. Okay. Even though it might not be your item, if you co-sign for a car for your son or your daughter, that is a primary account. You're going to hold that debt on your credit profile, and you don't want that. So what you want is just one person per auto loan for sure, because this way, if something does happen, God forbid, it won't affect 2 people. All right. So instead, like I said, qualify them, introduce them to credit, show them the way, share this video with them, because it's not hard. And sometimes it takes us being told, no, you can't have that because you don't have good enough credit, for us to realize that a 600 credit score isn't good enough anymore. If you want to be the best, you have to be the best. And you're not at your best with a 600 credit score. You are at your best with a 750 to an 800 credit score. It goes all the way up to 850. So if we're going to go big, let's go all in, and you will get there. The only thing that's going to get you to an 850 is time. And unfortunately, we can't fast track that, but you can certainly get to a 750 and then an 800 and then eventually an 800. And you can brag to people all along the way. Wear one of my shirts, 800 Credit Club. I'm telling you guys, I wear my shirts out all the time and I'm always talking to people and I always tell them, because I have on my shirts, what's the fastest way to boost your credit score? Ask me what the fastest way to raise my credit score, right? And so people always say, hey, what's the fastest way to raise my credit score? And I'll say, Tradelines. They're like, what? What's that? Authorized user trade lines. And, some people will debate me on authorized user trade lines because they'll say, oh, they don't matter anymore. They have no bearing on FICO 10. They have no bearing on FICO nowadays. Here's the thing about credit. It's not always about the score. The score doesn't matter because everywhere I look, my score is different. If I were to look on FICO 8 right now, my credit score is 800. If I were to look on Credit Karma, it's like 20 points higher. And if I were to look at like a FICO 4, FICO 2, it's usually about 40 points lower. 50 points lower, 60 points lower, so there's so many different FICO variations out there. Many times your score is going to fluctuate. So what's most important is the data, understanding the data points, understanding how to decorate your credit profile, understanding how to structure your credit profile, understanding how to add comparable credit to your credit profile, understanding all of those points, because credit score, let's create the most solid foundation where it is literally, recession proof. It's everything proof. If it's emergency proof, everyone should have, $250,000 of available credit on their personal credit that they're not even touching, because then they can go be a guarantor for their business. They can become, a paid guarantor for somebody else's successful business. But there's so many ways that you can make your credit make you money. Not only make money, but save you money. People don't talk about the interest rates that you're going to get at a 600 credit score versus a 750 to 800 credit score. And honestly, there's not much difference between that 750 and 850 range as far as like the interest rates go. At 750 plus, 780 plus, it's pretty much pretty close in numbers. You're obviously, the higher your credit score is, the lower risk you are, so the less that you would get with interest. But a lot of times interest is still significant. So even for myself, when I refinanced my vehicle, and if you watch my channel and you're subscribed, you probably have heard this story a million times, but I'm going to tell you guys again because it's so important for me to share. I had to get a car when my credit was bad. So my interest rate was like a 28%. It was ridiculous. My car payment was pretty much like the cost of rent. It was sickening. I got it refinanced, and that's what my goal was. I said, well, I just got to do what I got to do. I had just had a baby. I'm like, look, I need a 4-door car. Okay, I need something, and I'll take it. So the payment then was $650, close to $700. But when you have bad credit, your auto insurance rates are also much higher. A lot of people don't realize that insurance rates are based on credit. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So if you have good credit, like 750, 780, that's considered like good credit these days. Okay, credit is like 720. You're like, okay, you're okay. You'll probably still get approved, but you're okay. But if you want good, you got to get to 750. If you want like, okay, 780. If you want excellent, we got to get to 800. We got to get to 800. You got bragging rights. You got to get there, my friend. And you just have to start. Get in the slow lane. Take your time. Do it the right way. Don't cut corners. Don't try to fast track things, because I'm telling you from experience, it only costs you more money. It only costs you more time. Getting all those crappy credit builder and AI accounts and, fintech accounts, they're not always worth it. Sometimes they are. There are some benefit to some, right? And I'll give them that. But for the most part, we want to focus on quality credit accounts on our profile that can help us build comparable credit. So that way other banks and financial institutions will trust us and won't give us these low limits that, as soon as we go get gas, our utilization is sky high, So Just understand that we all want to get there as fast as possible. I get it. I was there too, my friend. I didn't want to hear it was going to take me a year. I didn't want to hear it was going to take me 2 years. That's the reality of it, because you have to build credit. You have to show your ability to repay back debt as agreed. You have to show your ability to be able to manage multiple types of credit accounts and not show to be a risk. What is risky behavior? Late payments, charge-off accounts, collection accounts, bankruptcies, too many inquiries, all right? You have to understand how to look good on paper. Here's something else that you want to consider is comparable credit. You also have to understand how to properly structure and build your credit profile if you want to get approved for certain things. Now, here's an example I'll share with you, and this is a true story of mine. Okay, so when I was much younger, I took my grandmother who had an 800 credit score, and I wanted her to co-sign on this fancy BMW, like I think it was like a 645 drop top at that time. And I already had the car, right? But this one was like a Pepsi blue color, and it was just beautiful, and I wanted a new one. So the one that I had was like all black, and it was tinted out. It was like drop top too. It was a beautiful car, right? 645 BMW. That was my favorite car, by the way. But the payments were $1,050 a month. So with that fancy car came a really big fancy freaking car note. And again, I wasn't educated about credit. I made a lot of money. I was the VP of operations for my company, and I had been there for like over 10 years. And when I got that car, I was making a lot of money. So I did not care. As long as I got approved, it wasn't a problem. And I still paid a lot of money out of pocket too. I don't remember, but it was probably close to $10,000 that I did as a down payment. And now that I'm educated about credit, I would never. Right? We would never. People inside my credit community, no, we're never putting a down payment because we know how to do this stuff. We know the credit game. We know the secrets. We know the hacks. We don't ever go to the dealership and ask them for financing. No. Okay, so anyways, 800 credit score. My grandma went into the dealership and they denied her. They denied her because she had never financed a vehicle in her life. All her life, she paid cash for cars. And since she never financed a vehicle, there was no comparable credit. So they were like, no, we can't approve you. And I actually almost had the car. Like I had already driven off the lot and everything. My family had left and I didn't get the car. So I had to take it back, and the gentleman had to drive me all the way from San Ramon to Sacramento back home, which was like damn near 2-hour drive each way. So yeah, it was super upsetting, but that just goes to show that it's not about the credit score. It's about the data that's on there. And because there was no history of ever having a car loan and being able to manage that type of credit account, they didn't feel comfortable lending regardless of the credit score, you know? So you have to have comparable credit. Now, in this day and age, what you can do is you can create secured loans and then get auto loans approved because you're adding comparable credit. Pledge loans, aka secured loans, those are installment loans. So if you do an installment loan for a high amount, or you do another type of credit builder installment loan like Credit Strong, because they have high limit installment loans. So if you add a couple of those high limits, and Credit Strong does personal and business, so they have high limit for both. That's why I do like Credit Strong and some of these like fintech companies. But here's the kicker. You need to add high limits, because if you want to get approved for high limits, again, you have to add that comparable credit, because what makes you think the bank is going to give you $50,000 if you don't even have $5,000? You've never even been trusted with $5,000. So why would we give you 50 or 80, right? So you have to think of it from the bank's perspective, and you have to be able to show the bank, well, hey, look, I've managed a $20,000 installment installment loan, and you can use that as like a pledge loan. You can get a pledge loan a number of different ways. You might think, well, that's a lot of money, Nicole. Where am I going to get $20K from? Well, if you have a credit card, a bank, sometimes you can do an advance and you can use the money from that. Not saying that's a great idea, but if you have family members, sometimes they are willing to do these type of things, because an installment loan, aka a pledge loan or a secured savings loan, however you want to spin it, right? It's all the same thing. It's just secured by a savings account. So your parents can actually help you, and they can just add you as a co-borrower to that secured loan. So if your parents are like, yeah, we'll help you, we want to help you get qualified. Hey, pops, mom, granny, grandma, whoever, right? Okay, so do the secured loan, right? If it's with Navy Federal, hey, pops, let's get you on with Navy Federal, put the money in your savings account, do the secured savings account, add me as a co-borrower, so that way I can inherit the trade line on my credit profile. And now, boom, you just created your own trade lines. So let's talk about the purpose of adding authorized user trade lines, because I know some people think they don't work anymore. Well, I'm here to tell you they absolutely do. They are absolutely the best thing that one can do to help add comparable credit to their credit profile and inherit more history on their credit profile and get those higher limits on your credit profile. It's also a great way to kind of get you into that computer system. So for example, we have a lot of American Express cards, right? And a lot of people want to get in with American Express. Well, here's the thing. American Express doesn't report history on trade lines. So the benefit with American Express is the high limits, right? And guess what? All of your information is getting put into American Express's database. And American Express, they do not play when it comes to business. You're going to start getting those advertisements. You're going to start getting those offers. You know, they're going to be like, hey, we'll give you, you know, maybe 60,000, 100,000 MR points if you come and apply, and, you know, come on, apply with us. So, you know, they want your business, but you just got to make sure that you're ready. 700 plus credit score with Experian will get you with American Express. The history is a game changer. So if you add a trade line that's got 20 years of history, and sometimes you need those, right? Those are always going to be more expensive, because trade lines, when you buy them, if you get a tremendous amount of history, that's where the price comes into play. If you see a bunch of cheap ass trade lines for a few $100s, chances are they probably don't have any history. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, because I was dealing with a client recently and she was telling me about a company that she bought trade lines from, and she saw an ad on Instagram. And, you know, she was, unfortunately, it never posted, right? And then I started doing some research on that company, and sure enough, they have a bunch of complaints about people paying them, and their prices were cheap, like $3.95 for a trade line. Those are cheap trade lines, okay? No person in their right mind would sell a slot on their trade lines for that cheap, guys, okay? So if somebody is telling you a price, you're like, wow, that's a great deal, oh my God, stop. It's too good to be true. Because here's the thing too, no trade line companies out there generally accept credit card payments for trade lines. That's another thing. And you have to be very careful of who you purchase trade lines with, you know, and I'm not saying that you have to purchase with me, but if I were you, I would, because I have so many relationships. I've been doing this for over 6 years now, and I have used so many different vendors. I have used so many different people, and I have finally found the right combination of card holders to work with that can verify, guarantee, and just are great resources to help you boost your credit, add history, add those high limits, right? Because how are you going to get high limits? Like if your highest credit card is $500, it's not going to happen until you start adding high limit comparables and start building up your relationship with the bank. All right, those two things are very important. And of course, application information is also important. And many times, banks are not verifying everything on the application. And another thing that you might want to consider is, when they ask for the income, many times it says household income, and people don't really understand what household income is. Household income is everyone in your household. All of their incomes combined is what they are looking at, right? Because that's going to provide more security and it's going to be less of a risk. AUs are also great to reduce your credit usage. Now, this is kind of a fine line, right? Because a lot of times when people are looking to get funding and they're already kind of over leveraged on their personal credit, it's very hard to get additional funding. So what people do is they'll add authorized user, high limit authorized users to, reduce their overall credit utilization. Obviously, you're adding more available credit. So if you add like a $50,000 American Express credit card, that's great because that's adding 50,000 more to your credit profile. So if your credit usage is 100% because you have, $10,000 worth of debt and your credit limit's only $10,000 overall, you'd be adding 50,000. So your credit usage would come way down because you're adding more available credit. And then many times what you will need to do is refinance the debt. Move that debt over into an installment loan and stop putting so much debt on your credit cards, because credit card debt is holding a lot of people back. And unfortunately, I understand, it happens. But at the same time, we have to be more aware because we have to retrain our brain to think, okay, is this something that I absolutely need, or am I just overspending right now? Or is there another way that I can find the same thing for cheaper, buying things that are pre-owned or looking elsewhere, making sure that you're getting the best deal. Buying something secondhand is always going to be better. Let somebody else take the burden for paying full price, especially when it comes to these vehicles. Never buy a brand new car. All right. As soon as you drive off the lot, you're losing tons of money. But nonetheless, let's get back on subject here. I get on a tangent sometimes, guys. You know how it goes. But if you haven't by now, make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. Give me a huge thumbs up and watch all of the videos inside of this Tradelines masterclass series, because there is some information that you really have to know if you want to master this whole credit game, guys. And I do these videos so that way you guys can truly learn and then earn. You really got to know this information because nobody else out there is really giving you this type of information. And, some people are going to be super biased one way or another. And I can look at it from all perspectives, but the most important one is experience. And this is how I get my clients the results that they're looking for. All right. And these are people that have already worked with a bunch of people on YouTube and social media. So stop wasting your money. Okay. If you want premium outcome, you need to invest in the best. And that is me. I'm not even going to, because everyone else out there, and I've talked to so many different people that have done business with so many different social media influencers out there, and I will never say any names, but there are some big names out there and their prices are way, way more than mine. And they got no results, and that's unfortunate. It really is. But here's the thing. You and me have to work together one-on-one, or you have to join the community and commit so many hours per week or so many hours per day to learn and watch the videos and, go through the information in there, because that is where you're going to find the most success at. And a lot of people do like the fact that I still am taking on one-on-one clients. So we meet once a a week or bi-monthly on Zoom and really get into, this whole thing and focus on your goals, whether that's to get funding, build business credit, build personal credit, start a credit repair business, start an online business, whatever the goal is. But you're going to need credit, and you're going to need to know how to, leverage your credit and use these credit cards properly as a business owner, because there's so much that you can do. And, it becomes mind blowing. It really does, because credit offers so much opportunity. It really does. It really does. But thank you guys so much for watching part 2 of the Tradelines masterclass. I am credit coach Nicole Scott. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.